It's kind of serendipitous that your current project with the Frontmen all started in some ways with the military, right? Like looking back, how much do you think your upbringing in a military family affected the direction of your life in music?
Completely. I mean, obviously, with my dad being in the Air Force, and then ironically, when Larry and Richie had gotten together with Randy Owen from Alabama, and they were doing some, private events as kind of like the front man. It was Richie's idea, and then he got Larry in it. But Randy was busy with his cattle business and playing for Alabama when he wanted to, and so they called me, and I was like, I'd love to play a show. So we did a show, and it was like instantly we played and we started singing, and I was like, boy, there's something special here. We're vastly different people, vastly different personalities, and vastly different singers. But when we sang together, almost unrehearsed, like, hey, there's a part for me. I think I'll sing harmony with him on that. And then that just turned into something special, which ended up being the next phone call I got was from Navy Entertainment in USO saying, hey, I'd already done some tours for them. And they're like, do you want to come back over with just your guitar, no fanfare, and just go into the trenches and play for some guys that really need the music? And we were like, sure. So I called up Larry and Richie. I'm like, do you want to do this with me? And they were like, we're in. So that turned into 7 or 8 tours every January when our bands weren't touring and going to do that. And had we not done that, I don't know that we'd be here. But the memories we made on those trips, although rather dangerous, just to be straight up, and we were in nations that were at war, and we were amongst, things getting shot at, and it was crazy. And I don't know that I'd do it again, but I probably would. But it'd just be just as scary. But those experiences shaped what helped us, I think, understand, if I can say this right, that there was a common thread that runs between our 3 voices and our 3 bands that we fronted. And when we sing these songs together, no matter which song, whether it's a Lone Star song, a Little Texas song, or a Russell's Heart song, or even now something we wrote, it just feels natural and it feels right. There's nothing forced, nothing pushed. It just feels like, man, this is just feeling really good. So kind of amazing.
Well, I'll tell you the harmonies, and sometimes all 3 of you guys will be playing guitar, and I know sometimes you guys play different instruments, but there's dare I say, Crosby, Stills, and Nash kind of thing where you've got 3 front men all perfectly capable in their own way of doing their own thing. Just like you had David Crosby, Stephen Stills, Graham Nash, any one of them can do whatever they want to do. But when you put them together, the harmonies are fantastic. And the same can be said of your band, the Frontmen. The harmonies are just superb.
Really appreciate the comparison. That's a great group to look at. A lot of times people will say, y'all like the Highwaymen, or you guys are like the Eagles. I hate to hear that one just because I'm such an Eagles fan. I'm like, no, that's hallowed ground. Don't even go there. But I do understand, and it was explained to me by a fan one day. He's like, no, I'm not going to take back what I said. He goes, Joe Walsh is Joe Walsh, Glenn Fry's Glenn Fry, Don Henley's Don Henley. They've all had success, but when they get together, they're the freaking Eagles. And so I understand that. But with you on that, I think that Crosby, Stills, and Nash, or anybody in that category, we do have this weird natural thing that just happens when we sing. We don't even sometimes, like when we're listening to songs for the album that either we wrote or they were pitched to us, it was almost like we just knew when we heard it, oh yeah, that's a Larry song. Yeah, he's going to sing that. I'm going to take the high part. Richie's going to take the low part. And then we just sit down and bang it out on a guitar and go, boy, that was easy. And so we just kind of know, it just naturally falls into place. And so that's when there's something special here. I think the only holdback for us as the front men is branding the name, reminding people of who we are so that they know who we are. And that doesn't happen naturally. It has to be promoted correctly. People have to know who they're coming to see. So I think being able to say, hey, you've got 3 singers that have collectively sold 30 million albums and have all 30 #1 hits. And, they were the voices of these 3 bands, and now they're together as one band. When you say that, people go, oh, wow, okay, I know who they are. Let's go see that. But if you just say the front men, I wouldn't know what that is either. I wouldn't go see that unless I knew who it was. So our job and our goal with signing with BMG Records in Nashville, which is, on fire major label, we're so thrilled that they believed in us enough to give us this shot, and, having great management and great booking. And so now we've got the team in place to be able to go out and just, as we say, conquer the world one day at a time.
I want to back up for a second, and I still want to talk, more about your current project, but I did selfishly kind of want to ask you about Some Guys Have All the Love, which made it into the top 10 at Billboard's Hot Country, even before you guys, I think, even had an album out. And I mean, in this case, Little Texas. How did that song first come about?
That song was written by Porter Howell and Dwayne O'Brien. We were on the road all the time, so they were constantly trying to find a quiet spot to go write, And I just tried to be the main mouthpiece and sing the songs, and they were bringing some great material. And we recorded most of the demos that became part of that album. And to be honest, I think Warner Brothers thought they could put out a song and it probably would flop, and they could just go, okay, we tried, it didn't work, let's move on. But they put that song out there, and I remember getting a key and a passcode to get in the door at midnight and going to Warner Brothers because we didn't have cell phones and I couldn't afford the long distance calls. And I would go in there and I would call radio stations all night. I would call them up. Hey, this is Tim Rushlow from Little Texas. I'm sure you've got our CD sitting on your desk somewhere. I'm sure it's among 40 other ones. But boy, if you would put ours at the top of the stack and at least give it a listen or play it in your truck and let us know what you think about it. Hey, by the way, we're coming to town. We're playing at Silverados next week. I'd love to have you come to the show and I'll buy you a beer. So I was doing a lot of networking, after hours trying to get that song up that chart. And we pretty much single-handedly got that song in the 30s before the label went, wow, this is working. We should go ahead and hop on this. At that point, while they were getting that album up the chart, getting Some Guys Have All the Love up the chart as our first initial single, we rushed in and finished the album. But we didn't get that album released until our fourth single. Now, back then, a song could go up and down the charts in 14 weeks. Now it takes 50 weeks. So it's crazy how things have slowed down. But yeah, we had, I think we had 4 or 5 top 10 hits off that first album before the album even hit the stores. I think that album is now platinum, but at that time it went gold. I think it was like 800,000 a few years ago. So I think it's probably platinum by now, but all the other albums ended up doing that. And that was quite a treat.
Oh yeah. Cause after that you guys had You and Forever and Me, which I think was a top 5. And
Yeah.
so you all had a top 5 hit, a top 10 hit, and like 3 top 20s in the US, which I think is an incredible feat for a debut album.
I think so too. Thank you for that. Your stats are good. Yeah, You Forever and Me, First Time for Everything, Some Guys Have All the Love, Stop on a Dime, and What Were You Thinking, I believe were the 5 singles. And then, of course, we disappeared and went to Memphis and recorded our next album, which we knew needed to be a step up, a notch up above that. And then we came out swinging with What Might Have Been, and God Bless Texas, and My Love. And then it kind of just, the rocket ship took off. I don't think we really knew the scope of the size of that at the time. We were so busy working, you just feel like you're in a bus, like you're in a fish tank headed down the highway, and you're just stopping along the way doing concerts. And pretty much that's what we did. We burned it up pretty hard, just working. The work ethic was definitely there.
Was there a song from that first album that kind of surprised you the most?
I think for me, probably First Time for Everything, the second single after Some Guys Have All the Love, because I remember shooting the music video. We were standing on Hoover Dam outside of Las Vegas, and it was windy, and we were shooting the video. And I remember sitting there, there's all these camera people, and we're just basically lip singing to the recording so they can get the video piece in place. And I remember thinking, I can't believe we're really doing this. This is just crazy, And it was just like hair and makeup people and all these, it was like, man, I've never had so much attention in my life. This is crazy. But I think I knew at that point when we were shooting that, and I saw some of the footage rolled back and they played it for us. That's when I went, wow, we could be big. Who would have thought, but I think that for me was probably the one song that I had the most fun with and that I felt like naturally fit me vocally, right? I just kind of got to do my thing with it. But yeah, it's a whirlwind, to think about how fast those things happen. And, it's kind of like a lot of people thought we were a put together band. We were an overnight success. Well, I'm telling you, there was 5 years of overnight hard playing clubs every night of the week. We saw our share of bar fights. We were in our share of bar fights. We saw every kind of thing you could want to see, from beer bottles getting broke over people's heads to people stopping dancing to watch us. And that was when we started to go, And then we would come back to those clubs, we'd crisscross the country, then we come back and people would just know we were going to be there. And you'd walk in on a Monday night and it's packed and you're like, what's going on? And I realized it was us. And then fast forward, like I remember playing in Salt Lake City at the Delta Center. And I remember asking our tour manager like 2 years later, it was like 93 or 94. I said, hey man, who's playing here tonight? He goes, why? And I said, well, look out the bus window. And there was a line wrapped around the building 3 times just to get in. And he goes, it's all you, buddy. You're not open for anybody tonight. And I realized when we sold it out, our first arena sellout, I thought, wow, okay, we're doing this, So those little moments, you don't forget those. Just like I didn't forget the first time we heard Some Guys Have All the Love at KLUR in Wichita Falls, Texas. Our friend Steve great radio DJ, played it for us, and we literally had to pull the van over and jump around outside because it was our song on the radio. So, you don't forget those things.
People don't realize how much work goes into. I mean, I've had a fair number of, music stars on the show, and the backstories and how long, I mean, sometimes 8, 12 years worth of, touring and work. And like you said, getting on the phone and calling people and the things that people have to do. People see you as an overnight success, but they don't realize that it wasn't overnight after all. It was a good, 5, 6, 8, 10 years.
I remember one critic, he said, yeah, I went to go see Little Nexus last night.
That's hilarious. I'm
and
sorry.
I was like,
that is funny.
So good. Well, and what's funny was there was a guy named Michael that at the time had worked for the Dallas Times-Herald, and he had said in his review of our second album with Big Time, which was the album you mentioned that just really hit all cylinders. And he says, I'm sure this album is going to be big. And remember, this is my hometown as well. He goes, but if I have to hear, I'd rather have a colostomy bag than have to hear Tim Rushlow sing lead vocals. And Jeez. I laughed till I cried. I thought it was hilarious. And then our album shipped that week. And that next week, just in the Dallas-Fort Worth market alone, we sold 32,000 albums in that market. And so I called him on the phone, and he answered, and I said, hey, Mike, it's Tim Rushlow. And he goes, oh, gosh, I know why you're calling. I said, no, you don't. And he goes, okay, why are you calling? You're calling to yell at me. I went, no. I said, whatever you're doing, don't stop it, because we're selling a lot of records there. And so please continue bashing. It's going to be okay. And I actually became friends with him after that. And his job was to be a critic. But that you just got to take everything in tongue in cheek. You got to take the good with the bad.
In the midst of all this touring and writing, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, where you end up connecting with Larry Stewart and Richie McDonald. How many times would you say you would cross paths before you guys started to connect in this way?
We known each other for years, and we were fans of each other's music and of our bands. I was a big Russell Hart fan, a big Lone Star fan, and they would say the same thing about me. I think that the minute that Richie and Larry called me about playing a show with them, because I haven't been affiliated with Little Texas since we had hits in the 90s. And so they were still in their bands, and they were wanting to do some corporate events and just special events, and high paying things. And I was like, sure, I'd love to come do one. But after we played the first time, I knew, ooh, okay, this is special. There's something really special here. And I remember telling them that night, I know you guys are in your bands, but boy, if you're ever not, this could be fun. And both of them remembered me saying that. And then, of course, all the tours later, playing every January for the troops, and then the opportunity. And what happened was after COVID, when COVID hit and kind of clamped everything shut, at that point, I had a big band. I had done a PBS TV special, and I was doing some Bobby Darin music and doing what I really love. And but it all came to a screeching halt with COVID. And it was after COVID, or in the midst on the backside of COVID, that the three of us talked and broke protocol. We got together and had a coffee or a beer or both. And we talked about the possibilities of, would anybody care in the States if we went and toured as the Frontmen, and try to see if merging our fan base together if people would be into that or not. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd be such a staunch, Little Texas, Russell Hart, or Lone Star fan that they wouldn't want to see that. That would have been fair, but we didn't know that we tried. So then after the first dozen shows we booked, and it was like instant. You could just see the people that connected the dots, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting to hear all this music from the three guys that sang these songs all in one spot on one night. This is not a tribute act. This is not, this is the guys that did this. This is their body of work, and they're doing it together. It's not like Larry walks out and does 30 minutes, or Richie does 30 minutes, and I come out and do 30 minutes. Then we have a kumbaya moment at the end of the night and do an encore. It's not that. We really are on stage together. We're musicians, we're singers, we're frontmen, but we also have the band behind us, who also sing great. And so that's a big part of this show, is that it is this big body of work that just really works for us, and it's special. When I get to sing on Bluest Eyes in Texas with Larry Stewart, it's one of my favorite songs that I didn't record. So to get to sing on that with him and mean it, That's the funny part. When you've got a band, you've got your lead singer, right? And then you've got a band, they're singing the band harmonies. Well, we're three lead singers. And so we only know one speed, and that's to be a lead singer. So when three lead singers are singing three parts of harmony together, no matter who's taking the melody, we emote those parts and we mean those parts. And we've heard from several audience people, a lot of fans have said, man, the harmonies are not only good, but you guys mean that. I mean, you're singing it with such intensity, and it's almost like I don't want to dishonor Larry's song, and I sure don't want to dishonor Amazed from Richie. I mean, it's a freaking song of the decade, and so we do mean it. And so it's almost like, because we're such fans of each other's bodies of work, we want to make those things shine every night. And I think we realize every time we play a show as the Frontmen, there's a lot of people that are coming there that don't know what the heck they're going to see. And how do they know us? Are we going to suck? Are we going to be great? Is it going to sound the same as the bands? No, it doesn't sound the same as the bands. I think it sounds, in some ways, I think it sounds better.
Better. I was going to say better.
I mean, it's hard for me to say that because I love my past and all that, and I love the bands my fellow brothers are in and have been in, but it almost feels better. It just feels fresher.